Hello, hello, hello. If you're watching this, you missed day 2 of our week 18 lecture in Foundations of Tech. Let's go ahead and get going here. So, this week we finished up our exploration of how a shirt is made. So, our introduction into the world of manufacturing and figuring out how goods are priced and what goes into actually bringing something to market. From there, we're going to go ahead and talk about advertising, which is, again, a huge topic that factors into how well you can sell your product. And lastly, we didn't quite get to materials engineering, so we're going to table that for next time. Our objectives are you can identify criteria companies need to consider in creating their marketing strategy, argue the efficiency of various advertising techniques, and last but not least, explain the importance of material engineering, which once again, we're going to hit that next class. So table that one for now. Now we started off today, we're finishing up assignment 30, which we were working on last time, and it is due Friday the 8th at midnight. Assignment 31, we're going to start later in class today. I'll show you exactly what is expected, and that one's due Wednesday the 13th. So if you forgot, this is what assignment 30 is. There are 5 videos for you to watch and answer some questions. Some of the questions are answered in the articles underneath the video instead of in the video itself. I'm not going to play these for you right now. You can open up the assignment and play them yourselves and answer all the questions. Now, we did get through to here, although we didn't answer the questions below. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the more difficult questions that are not answered in the videos themselves, but are rather answered in the article below, so it might be a little harder to find the answers for. And the first part here talks about the minimum wage and Indonesia. When they talk about Indonesia, they mean Bangladesh, the country they specifically mentioned, and the answers for those things are found down here. So there's a question that asks you to identify some differences and similarities in the pictures, so you need to look at these pictures. And also down here is the information on the minimum wage. So please take a look at that, and the idea here is to really notice the wage inequality between Bangladesh and other countries that you could potentially have your goods manufactured in. Lastly, this section deals with shipping. So please make sure to check out the costs. And then to answer these last bottom 3 questions, again, you do need to look at the article underneath. So don't forget to scroll down here. This has a lot of information like the sizing of the crate, who actually came up with it, and why certain people weren't so pleased. So go ahead and make sure you read through that. All right, so that finishes up this assignment. Please make sure you get that in. From there, we go on to talk about advertising and marketing. Exciting stuff. So of course, we are talking about supply and demand, and ultimately there's many factors that factor into how well you can sell something. There's advertising, but there's also just the general strength of the economy, goals of your company, fads. All of these things kind of work together to ultimately result in your goods being very popular or not, selling well. So this is something that is a complex equation for you to figure out with many, many things going on. Now, just to kind of give a throwback to our history unit, there are, of course, 4 elements to consider with any technology: how it impacts the environment, the economy, society, and politics. And while selling your product, you should also think about these things. So if there's an environmental effect, positive or negative, that could, of course, reflect on the price of your particular goods. Social effects, political effects, all of those could be a part of your marketing strategy. And naturally, if your product has some kind of economic benefit to the buyer, that would also be a great thing to include in your advertising and making sure people know what your product is going to be providing. So these 4 elements are going to be key in making sure your product can sell well. Now, there's always trade-offs. No product is always going to be great in everything, right? There's always going to be some kind of downside. So it's important that when you present your product, you upplay the upsides and downplay the downsides. That is one of the key facts or key features of advertising. Now, let's go ahead and skip past these couple of examples and let's talk about advertising in a little bit more depth. Now, this site right here, you guys might want to come back to. I have a note here. When we're working on our project next week, this could be a helpful slide to refer back to. All right, so advertising hinges on three different things that you need to bring together in order to have something successful be accomplished. You have to have a strategy. You have to use creativity to actually, come up with a good way to put something together. And lastly, you have to execute well on that vision. All three of these are important. And if one is not there to support the others, you could really end up with an advertisement that falls flat. So you want a clearly crafted message, you want something that gets the audience attention and something that they can really get interested in. And lastly, the strategy needs to communicate the idea well, and it needs to be something that looks appealing. So in 2017, there was a ad released by Caitlyn Jenner. There's a link to it here. You can watch it there. Essentially, the ad was horrible and insensitive and led to a lot of negative publicity. Just to kind of give you a recap of the ad without playing it, it features some people protesting. It's unclear what they're protesting. There's a police presence there holding back the protesters. And then Caitlyn Jenner walks across the line and kind of hands a can of Pepsi to a police person, and then everyone smiles and starts partying. So this clearly makes light of some of the very dire and serious social issues that are going on at this time and are still going on to this day. So we want to make sure that we don't fall into these pitfalls. There's a lack of strategy in this ad. What they planned to do was not a good idea from the get-go. So despite the execution being really nice, the video has a lot of high production value and the cuts are really pretty and the actors look very gorgeous, but none of that mattered because the central message was so poor. So this is just an example of what not to do. Something else you can do is you can check out Google Trends to see how well a message is resonating with customers. So here we can see Pepsi searches versus Coca-Cola searches around the time of the ad. Pepsi got a lot of publicity. Look, they got suddenly a huge spike in searches. But just so happens this wasn't a good outcome. They weren't getting a lot of business here. They were getting a lot of hate and angry letters. So successful advertisements need to be highly targeted. You need to identify a clear audience who you want to appeal to. They should be solving a problem, so you need to be clearly showing the utility of your product or what that product is going to provide your customer. They should be unique. As people experience the same thing over and over again, they become desensitized to it. It doesn't stick in their mind very well. It's part of the reason why people feel like they're getting, when they're getting older, time moves faster for them because all their experiences blend together as there's not as many new things to experience. So you'd want to stand out from the rest of your competition. And lastly, it should have some kind of message that causes your audience to act. It should have a call to action of some kind, as that's shown to be very effective. So we are going to embark on an assignment. This is going to be due Wednesday. We will be working on it next time we see each other next week, so you don't have to focus on it. You'll have to find your chosen advertisement on YouTube. I have some suggestions here on the slides you could use, or any favorite advertisement that you have that you like. Give me a link to it. What product is being advertised? Why are you attracted to this particular advertisement? Is it funny? Is it catchy? Does it have a really good message? Is it unique? When did this advertisement come out? If you just look at the date it was posted on YouTube, that's probably close enough to the date it came out, so you could just go with that. And then look it up on Google Trends. So go to trends.google.com, type in the company or the product that you are researching, and then figure out if your advertisement had actually a change in the amount of publicity your product was receiving at the time. And then use Google Trends to compare a competitor to your product. So for instance, if I was looking at a, let's say, commercial for Nike shoes, I could look up how well Nike shoes were trending as opposed to, let's say, Skechers. And I could see if the gap between the two was narrowed during the time of my commercial. And this is, of course, a very cursory look at how you can gauge market trends. A company would have a lot more data. They would have surveys. They would have access to their sales data, of course, to demonstrate if an ad might have been successful. All right. Thank you very much. And I'll see you guys all next week. Please shoot me an email if something is unclear.